Welcome back to more Club World Cup fantasy content. This will be the updated lineups heading into Matchday 1, and this will still be useful in future match days, especially for the remainder of the group stages, and I'll be providing updates about new signings and also a few changes to the lineups themselves and also out of position players. That's what the focus will be in this video. If you want to break down on the form, stats, and a lot more detail, then check out my original predicted lineups video, and this will build upon those discussions, and I'll also show these lineups during the deadline stream at midnight basically in the UK on the 14th of June going into the 15th, of course. So I'll be going live 1 or 2 hours before that deadline. It should be a blast, covering all your questions and locking in our teams for the Matchday 1 deadline, and the plan is to cover every single one in terms of these deadline streams, team selections, and also the best wildcard squads for every single game week. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload live stream for UCL Fantasy, FPL, and the Club World Cup. And check all the links in the description. That includes a link to my mini league, and that will give you a great idea of how to actually play this game because it is asked in every single video. You download the FIFA app. If not, you go to the website and go to the Play Zone section. So it's very easy to find Club World Cup Fantasy. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Let me know down in the comment section below if you want the names to be read out for every single lineup during that deadline stream, but I want to highlight the recent injury updates, talk about anything that's changed over the last couple of days, highlight the best picks once more and those out of position. So in the case of Palmeiras, there's only one injury to Bruno Rodriguez, a 6 million forward who has been injured since January of 2024, and there have been no updates on that situation. And in my opinion, the best pick is Estevao, but he is out of position technically because he is a forward in this game. Yeah, he's playing as a right midfielder or right winger. You could technically say that isn't out of position, but there are inconsistencies with the classifications for midfielders and forwards, which we typically get in FPL, UCL Fantasy, the Euros, and the World Cup too. But Palmeiras face Porto, Al Ahly, and Inter Miami in the group stages. And if you want a full breakdown of their stats, form, and also a bit more detail, then check out my original predicted lineups video. The next team is Porto, and I haven't made any changes to their predicted starting 11, but there could be 1 or 2 tweaks here and there. For example, Pepe playing in Fabio Vieira's position as the inside forward on the right hand side, and maybe we can see a shift to a 4-3-3 formation with Fabio Vieira dropping into a more central position. But they will face Palmeiras in Matchday 1, then it's Inter Miami and Al Ahly for the group stages, and the only injury is to Marko Grujic, who has been out since late October with a heel injury. And the best picks in my opinion are Samu Aguilar, Rodrigo Mora, and Francisco Mara, who have been covered in detail across all my videos, not just my drafts but also the best budget players in Club World Cup Fantasy. The next team though is Inter Miami, and they've got one standout in Lionel Messi, but I've only made one change to this lineup, and that's Alan taking Jordi Alba's place as the left back. He only costs 4.2 million, but some reports indicate that Jordi Alba will miss Matchday 1 against Al Ahly, and he would have been my standout pick in that defensive line. But you might even want to go for Ostari as your backup goalkeeper, who only costs 4 million, because the main goalkeeper is still out injured, and that is Drake Callender. The other injuries include David Ruiz, also Baltasar Rodriguez, Yannick Bright, Gonzalo Lujan, and of course Jordi Alba himself. The best pick by far is Lionel Messi, who has 5 goals and 3 assists over the last 3 matches at club level, and while he didn't score for Argentina against Chile or Colombia, he had a very good game against the latter, and he was a bit unfortunate not to get a goal in that particular match. But let's now cover the final team in Group A, and that's going to be Al Ahly. There's only one player across all these predicted lineups who haven't had their prices confirmed yet, so that means they haven't been added to the game, and that's El Solia in the midfield. But we've got 2 out of position players here in Taha Mohamed on the left hand side and also Ben Chaki on the right, but you could technically say they are playing in a forward position, so the classification is correct, but they are not playing as the sole striker, which is what you'd ideally want from a forward in Club World Cup Fantasy. So Reda Slim has been out injured since Christmas. My favourite pick is actually Ali up front. He only costs 4.2 million, and he has delivered 10 goals and 3 assists in 16 Egyptian League matches, and I also broke him down in more detail in my best budget players video as well. Over the past 7 games, he has scored 9 goals, so he's in great form, and Al Ahly face Inter Miami, Palmeiras, and Porto. So I think it's a pretty well-balanced group, you could say, and the Portuguese outfit haven't had the best of seasons. I know they've ended it quite strongly on paper, with 7 wins out of the last 10, but they finished third in that league in back-to-back seasons for the first time since the 70s, I believe. So I think Palmeiras have a good chance of getting top spot, and Al Ahly could surprise people. I think Inter Miami have looked quite shaky this season, but with the magic of Messi, you never know what could happen there. Let's now go on to Group B, which includes the Champions League winners Paris Saint-Germain. Ousmane Dembele will miss the group stages due to injury, which I've covered before, and that was reported by Fabrice Hawkins. Barcola is doubtful, but reports indicate that he will be available for Matchday 1. Yeah, I think Gonzalo Ramos could get the nod up front, with Kvaratskhelia on the left and Doué on the right. There are no out-of-position players per se, and they face Atletico Madrid in Matchday 1, who could be the dark horses of this tournament. Then it's Botafogo and Seattle Sounders, and those games look really appealing for Paris Saint-Germain, who have been in fine form since late November. The best picks for me include Doué, Hakimi, and probably Marquinhos. He has less than 5% ownership at the time of this recording, so any PSG defender, that could also be Bacho, who has less than 5% ownership. They can give you 2 additional points for the scouting bonus and compete with the likes of Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, who have that attacking potential, and they're still 2 of the best options in the game. But let's now go on to Atletico Madrid, who have some very solid assets, and I've made a few changes from the original predicted lineups. So I've got Barrios in the midfield, taking Koke's place, but that is still 50-50 in my opinion. The same goes for Sorloth versus Griezmann up front, but Sorloth scored a hat-trick in the last La Liga game against his old club Girona, so I think he's got the form, and he could partner Alvarez very well against Paris Saint-Germain, but Griezmann does have that experience. His goals and assist record this season hasn't been great, especially over the last 10 matches, so I think Sorloth has better form, and he could start in Matchday 1 against Paris Saint-Germain. But in terms of injuries, Lenglet suffered a hip problem last week, which makes him a doubt versus PSG, and that's why I've changed that defensive line slightly, with Jimenez taking his place to partner Lenormand. But if you feel differently, then let me know down in the comment section below. Show support to the video as well, share this podcast, also like the video, let's get it to over 200, and subscribe to the channel. But in terms of the best picks, I think Alvarez is the clear standout. Leno might be interesting at 5.7 million as a midfielder, but I'm not that enthused about the other options, even Oblak in goal, and my recommendation is to invest in Atletico in Matchday 2. I'd avoid them against PSG entirely, and that even includes the Argentine Julian Alvarez. But next up is going to be Botafogo in Group B. They have a lot of injury problems right now in Bastos, Mateus Martins, Cuiabano, who could start a left wing, by the way, as a 4 million option. There's Leo Link, Marçal, Jefinho, and Hugo. That's an extensive injury list. And the best picks for me are Igor Jesus, who costs 4.1 million as a forward, starting up front for Botafogo, and Cuiabano. They offer great value in those positions. But in terms of those who are out of position, that would be Savarino, who is playing as an attacking midfielder, but the Venezuelan is classified as a forward in this game. And the same goes for Artur, who's playing on the right-hand side, but he is also a forward in Club World Cup Fantasy. They face Seattle Sounders in Matchday 1, so you might be interested in a punt like Igor Jesus, but then against PSG and Atletico Madrid, they don't look that appealing, and I'd probably avoid them entirely. But if you are on the market for these kind of budget options, I think Cuiabano, if he's available, and Igor Jesus are decent choices. And the final team is Seattle Sounders, who have the likes of Paul Arolia, Jordan Morris, Yeimar Gomez Andrade, and Ki-hee Kim. They are all injured right now, and the best pick in my opinion is Rusnak, who costs 5.4 million, and he's the main penalty taker. You look at their wingers, so De La Vega and Rothrock, they are both classified as forwards. That is a common issue, you could say, or a common theme across a lot of these teams, but essentially, if you had to pick one player, it would be Rusnak for me against Botafogo in Matchday 1. But just like with the Brazilian team's assets, I would be avoiding Seattle Sounders entirely against Atletico Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain. Let's now move on, though, to Bayern Munich and Group C. They face Auckland City in Matchday 1, and the only issue would be rotation, because if you get it right and you invest in 2 or 3 Bayern Munich players who start, their ceiling is extremely high, especially the likes of Harry Kane, who might be the best captaincy option in Matchday 1. And I think Thomas Müller will start. This will be his final tournament for Bayern Munich. He is classified as a forward, but he is playing essentially as an attacking midfielder or second striker, you could say. But I've also made a few changes to this particular lineup, with Sasha Bowie at right back and also Goretzka partnering Kimmich in the midfield instead of Pavlovic. And this is based on the lineup I saw by Kicker, who are quite reliable. But I think only a few days ago, it might have been on Thursday, there were reports indicating that Bayern Munich could play a B team. So if that's the case, we could see even more rotation than what you see on screen. But Jonathan Tah has been added to Club World Cup Fantasy. He costs 5.5 million, but I think Stanisic offers even better value at 4.9 million, especially if his ownership remains under 5%. And after Auckland City, Bayern Munich face Boca Juniors and Benfica, and Leroy Sané will join Galatasaray after the Club World Cup. That's yet another common theme in this tournament with our contract players and those that have had moves confirmed. They will take place from the 1st of July, but they can play for their current clubs in this group stage, at least for the Club World Cup. Now, with injuries, Upamecano, Davis, Ito, Kim Min-jae and Bookman are all out injured, but I think Upamecano and Musiala are getting very close and they should both be available for Matchday 1. But reports indicate they'll be eased back into things, so I don't think either will start against Auckland City. And the best picks will be Harry Kane, Elise and Guerrero, especially for Matchday 1. But let's now go on to the second team in Group C, and that's Boca Juniors, who have made a managerial change. So Miguel Angel Russo is their new manager, and this will be his third stint at the club. Sergio Romero is the only injury right now, so Luis Advincula is now back, and he could start in that right back spot over Blondell. So that's something that could change over the next couple of days. And he played against Colombia and Ecuador in the recent World Cup qualifiers. The best picks would probably be Jimenez because he's 4.5 million, but I think there are better forwards at a similar price tag like Igor Jesus and also Aguioa from Porto. But you might also consider Marchesín as your backup goalkeeper. He only costs 4.1 million. I think he's a superior choice than Ustari from Inter Miami, but I would only go for Boca Juniors assets in Matchday 3 against Auckland City. I'd completely avoid them against Benfica and Bayern Munich, and these will be the first couple of games for Miguel Angel Russo, and he'll probably change the formation as well from this kind of 4-3-1-2 formation or 4-4-2 diamond to something else, maybe a 4-4-2, and that is something he did a lot at Rosario Central, especially a 4-2-3-1 formation actually. So we could see a lot of changes in tactics and setups from a lot of these teams, especially those that have changed managers, and Boca Juniors are one of those examples. But the next team is very important because with Benfica, I talked about this in my original podcast about Di Maria not featuring in this Club World Cup. That is incorrect. He will play for Benfica in this tournament, and then he will join his boyhood club, Rosario Central. And there have also been a few injury updates. So at right back, I've now put Gouveia, or Gouveia, I think Portuguese people will correct me in the comment section. So he will take Thomas Araujo's place because reports indicate he will be unavailable until the end of June. So he'll miss the entire group stages against Boca Juniors, Auckland City and Bayern Munich. And there are no out-of-position players on paper in this predicted lineup, but my favourites will be Pavlidis, Di Maria and Aktoglu, who I have discussed in my recent videos. But the likes of Alexander Barr, Manu Silva and Thomas Araujo are currently injured, and I think you could even find some value in that defensive line with Trubin or perhaps Antonio Silva, especially for the first two match days. And I'm looking at Auckland City. They are an opponent to target, but Bayern Munich, despite some of their problems, is something I'd probably avoid in Matchday 3. Let's now go on to Auckland City, who are going to be the lowest ranked team at this Club World Cup. They have no injuries, and the best pick is probably Bevan, a 5 million forward, but in terms of out-of-position options, there is actually quite a few. So Zeb is playing as a right back in recent matches, but he's a midfielder in this game and he costs 5 million. Then you've got Yu on the right side and also Lagos. They are both forwards in this game at 4.7 million and 4.8 million respectively. They face Bayern Munich in Matchday 1. I would avoid Auckland City like the plague. Then it's Benfica and Boca Juniors in that order. But let's now move on to the next group. In Flamengo, who are in brilliant form right now, leading that Brazilian league, and they signed Jorginho from Arsenal on a free, and he costs 5.5 million in this game. If he takes those penalties, he could be a decent asset. You also get points for key passes and also for the tackles. But I have to be honest, Jorginho isn't someone I'd really recommend in general, especially from open play, because as good as he was for Arsenal over the last couple of seasons, he only has 2 goals and 3 assists in the Premier League in 3 campaigns. So he's not going to offer that attacking threat like the other budget midfielders I've covered in my recent podcast. But Araujo is the only out-of-position player here. He is a forward at 6 million, but he's playing as a right winger essentially. It's not too bad, but it's not the ideal scenario. Like I mentioned before, you want these forwards playing right down the middle up front. So Flamengo kick things off against ES Tunis, then it's Chelsea, and their final match in the group stages is against Los Angeles FC, who are the final team of this Club World Cup. They actually took Club Lyon spot because of the legalities and things that happened over the last couple of months, but the best pick for me would be De Arrascaeta as the attacking midfielder, and he scored in a recent World Cup qualifier for Uruguay against Venezuela, but there are only 2 injuries to report in Gonzalo Plata and Nicolas de la Cruz. He usually partners Gerson in the midfield, but I think Jorginho will come straight in for Matchday 1, and we could see some decent competition in that midfield because they've got several options on the bench as well. Let's now go on to the second team in Group D, and that's going to be the most known in Chelsea. I think Robert Sanchez will start in goal, but in the Europa Conference League, it was Jorgensen mainly starting in that competition, and there are no out-of-position players in my predicted lineup, and I've only made one change, and that's Liam Delap, one of their new signings, taking Nicholas Jackson's place, but Chelsea's fixtures look really promising on paper, facing Los Angeles FC, Flamengo, and ES Tunis, and they also signed a few other players actually, but the only injury is Wesley Fofana right now for the Blues, and the best picks would include Palmer, Cucurella, and Enzo Fernandez, but you might even want to take a punt on either Delap or Jackson, depending on who you think starts in Matchday 1, and I think we could see a case of them sharing minutes and starts across the group stages as one of them cements themselves as the main striker for Chelsea going into the next season. And now we're going to go to the new club in Los Angeles FC, so you might recognize Hugo Lloris in goal, and there are 2 out-of-position players here in Boanga and Ordaz. They are playing as the wingers there, and the best pick would be Boanga, who has 8 goals and 3 assists over the past 10 matches. He's also the main penalty taker for Los Angeles FC, and there are only 2 injuries to report in Odin Holm and Lorenzo de la Vache. So I think LAFC, who are unbeaten in 9 matches, could be a quite underrated team in this tournament. They face Chelsea in Matchday 1 though, then it's ES Tunis and Flamengo in Matchday 3. And now it's going to be ES Tunis, who have a lot of 4 million defenders. Their entire backline is full of them. I wouldn't go for their goalkeeper. I think a lot of players in that position were severely overpriced to say the least, and there is one out-of-position player in Sass, who I covered in my best budget players video. He only costs 4.4 million, and he would be my favourite option overall, but you might make a case for their left winger or any of their 4 million defenders as an enabler and budget option. They face Flamengo Matchday 1, Los Angeles FC, and Chelsea in that order, and only Roger Alulu, or Ahulu, Jesus Christ, my pronunciations can be terrible at times. Yes, he's the only injury that ES Tunis have at the moment. Now, River Plate is going to be a very interesting team because they've got Armani and Mastantuono, who offer exceptional value, and facing Urawa Red Diamonds and Monterrey, I think that looks really promising there for the Argentine outfit. Then it's Inter Milan, and we don't know what to expect from them yet because they have a new manager, but I think River Plate could go quite far in this tournament, and apart from the European teams who will be the favourites to win it, I think River would be probably next in line overall, and they could go to the quarterfinals or semi-finals depending on the luck of the draw and how they perform in this tournament. But they have had one more injury since the last video I made talking about all these lineups. So Paulo Diaz is the kind of latest injury concern, but the others are still pretty much the same in Agustin Roberto, Gonzalo Montiel, Maximiliano Mesa, and Leandro Pires. And the best picks, I mentioned them earlier, Mastantuono and Armani. I'm not too keen on the rest. It's not really worth going for a defender who costs 5.1 million when you can cover them defensively with Franco Armani at only 4 million. The fixtures look promising, and I think Mastantuono is the best pick overall, but there is one out-of-position option in Colidio, who is a forward at 5.8 million playing on the left. You could technically say he's not out of position, but he pales in comparison to Mastantuono, who also takes penalties for River Plate. Now we're going to go on to Inter Milan, who reached the Champions League final, but the end of the season was very bittersweet, if you can even say that. It was quite terrible, actually, because they missed out on the Serie A title by 1 point, and they got battered by PSG, and no one expected that, to be quite honest with you. But I think they can bounce back here with their new manager, Christian Chivu, who was at Parma, and they also signed Bruno Enrique and Peter Sucic. So there's a lot of transfer activity going on, actually, and there's going to be different transfer windows now because of this Club World Cup only Pio Esposito and Carboni are currently injured, so Çalhanoğlu is now in the clear. He is linked with several clubs in Saudi Arabia. I think Galatasaray is another one he's been linked to, but I think he'll start in the midfield. And the best picks include Dumfries, Sommer, and Lautaro Martinez. There are no out-of-position players. Even the likes of DeMarco or a defender like Pavard/Acerbi, those that have less than 5% ownership especially, they could be really good options in that defensive line. But Dumfries, with that attacking threat and being not out of position, but he bombs forward, he basically plays as a right winger. He is the best player at Inter Milan in Club World Cup Fantasy. Now we're going to go on to Monterrey, who, I'll be honest, I'm not really too keen on, but Bertarame is their best asset. He costs 6 million and he's classified as a forward. But just to correct something I said in my previous video, Martin Demichelis is no longer the manager. He was sacked after a 2-1 defeat versus Toluca, so it'll be quite difficult to predict this starting 11. There could be a different formation, a back three perhaps, or it could be a 4-3-3 instead of this 4-2-3-1. So take this with a pinch of salt. It's only to be served as a guide, and you can have a good understanding of the most likely players to start in every single club. But Carlos Salcedo could return at the end of this month after suffering a cruciate ligament tear in January, and I think Bertarame is probably the best pick overall, even over Sergio Ramos, who you definitely recognise, of course, from the World Cup, the Champions League, and also some other fantasy games you probably would have played in the past. But 3 goals and 1 assist over the last 4 matches is decent form for Bertarame, and it's Inter Milan first, River Plate second, and Urawa Red Diamonds to round off the group stages. That's where you could take a punt there on Monterrey with Oliver Torres, maybe Sergio Canales, or, in my opinion, Bertarame. He is the standout there from the Mexican outfit. But there is one more team in Group E, and you might not know much about them, but there is a good reason for that. Urawa Red Diamonds. They won't have too many interesting Club World Cup fantasy assets, and only Kai Shibato is currently injured, which I discussed in my previous podcast. The best picks are probably their fullbacks, Ishihara and Ogiwara, but if you wanted to pick only one of them, it's probably going to be their right back, Ishihara. He has shown more attacking potential this season, but honestly, I probably wouldn't recommend them. Maybe in Matchday 3 against Monterrey if you're backing Urawa Red Diamonds to win that, but against River Plate and Inter Milan, I think the chance of winning those games are quite slim, but you can be surprised in this tournament, and maybe I'm underestimating their level and the quality of their assets. Going into Group F now, though, I think Borussia Dortmund would stand out here, facing Fluminense, Mamelodi Sundowns, and Ulsan HD. They signed Joe Bellingham, who could become an established starter as the season progresses, but I think it will be Pascal Gross and Nemecha as the main central midfielders in this 3-4-2-1 formation. And in terms of injuries, Schlotterbeck, Mane, Koulibaly and Özcan are all out at the moment, and the best picks would be Garassi. He's by far the best option. Then it's Kobel, and possibly one of Svensson or Ryerson, but we are seeing some of the ownership figures increase. So even Svensson, who had 4% ownership at one point, he is now at 5%. So maybe the appeal of that particular asset will diminish, and you might want to go for Bensabani instead. So whoever has less than 5% ownership in that defensive line, that's what I'd recommend to cover that Borussia Dortmund defense, unless you're going for Kobel instead. Now, the next team is going to be Fluminense, who are probably the favourites to finish second in this group. So they have Otavio, Germán Cano, Agustín Canovio, and Facundo Bernal. They are all doubtful for Matchday 1, and the best picks are probably Arias, followed by Serna, who is out of position. He is a 4.7 million forward, playing as a left winger or left midfielder, and the 4 million fullbacks could be quite interesting actually in Guga and Fuentes. But facing Borussia Dortmund in Matchday 1, I would avoid them, especially their defenders. Then Ulsan HD, that could be a good time to invest in Fluminense, and then Mamelodi Sundowns. They could be a bit of a tougher opponent, but I still think Fluminense would be the favourites to win that game as well. But speaking of them, Mamelodi Sundowns, they have been quite successful over the years. They only have one injury in Sianda Nyanga, and in Matchday 1, they could be worth a punt, and my favourite pick is Reyners. He has 6 goals and 1 assist over the past 7 matches, and apart from that, I'm not too interested in the other assets, but you might have more knowledge about some of these teams, and you've seen some of these players feature as well, and you might have your eye on 1 or 2 assets there that are going severely under the radar, but I think Reyners is the clear standout from Mamelodi Sundowns. And now going into the final team of this group, that is Ulsan HD. They face Mamelodi Sundowns, Fluminense and Borussia Dortmund in that order, and they have several out-of-position players. So Ludwigsson is 5.5 million, but he's a midfielder playing as a left back, whilst Jae Suk is classified as defender, who only costs 4 million. Yeah, he's playing recent games as a left winger and even as a right winger at times. So that could be my favourite pick from Ulsan HD if I had to narrow it down to just one of them. But that's pretty much because he's an enabler, so cheap and accessible, and he's out of position in a positive sense. Having a defender featuring as a winger is a dream in all these fantasy games, and there are no injuries to report for Ulsan HD. Going into the next group now, that is Group G, and Man City are also very active in this transfer market. That's one way of putting it. They have signed Cherki, Ait Nuri, Reinders, and Bettinelli, but Kovacic is injured. He had Achilles tendon surgery last week, and the best picks remain Haaland, Marmoush, and Gvardiol. And the out position player for me is Mateus Nunes, who could feature at right back. That's what he's done a lot of times this season, but it could also be Rico Lewis. I've gone for Gvardiol as the centre back, and I think out of all the new signings, Ait Nuri is the most likely to start at that left back spot, and I put Reinders alongside Rodri, so a complete overhaul in that midfield and also a change in the kind of more advanced role there. And I've put Cherki, but I'm less convinced about Cherki compared to Reinders and Ait Nuri in terms of his starting berth for Matchday 1. And we could see Phil Foden, for example, get the nod against Wydad Casablanca. And if you are a Man City fan or you have a different opinion, then let me know down in the comment section below. The same goes for all the other clubs covered in this podcast. Now, going into the next team, that's Juventus, and they would be the favourites to progress with Man City. Locatelli remains doubtful, and Perrin will miss the entire Club World Cup, so that means Di Gregorio is safe between the sticks, and the best options overall are Cambiasso, Di Gregorio, and Yildiz from this squad, and it's Al Ain and Wydad Casablanca to kick things off. The same goes for Man City, of course, just in a different order. So I think for the first two match days, investing in Juventus and Man City is a viable strategy, and you could avoid both teams in match day 3. Juventus beat Man City earlier this season in the Champions League, and you technically have two out of position players in the forward line with Gonzalez and Yildiz being forwards, but they're not playing as a striker there. And McKennie could be the right wing back, but he is a midfielder by trade, and he costs 6 million in Club World Cup fantasy as well. I wouldn't be going for him, that's for sure. Now with Al Ain, there are no injuries to report, and Laba is the best pick. He has produced 8 goal contributions over the previous 10 games, and we have 2 out of position players, and not in a positive way. So Park is a 5.7 million midfielder, but he's probably going to start as a centre back in this back 3 formation, and Traore is a midfielder in this game, but he will likely start as the right wing back. He only costs 4 million though, but facing Juventus and Man City, I just wouldn't go for any Al Ain player for the first 2 match days. But for match day 3, you could go for one of their forwards, especially Laba against Wydad Casablanca, and maybe you favour Wydad Casablanca instead, so you want to target Al Ain, but that is the game week or the match day to really target these assets. I don't think they have much of a chance against Juventus or Man City on paper. And the final team here is Wydad Casablanca, who have one injury to Renan Viana, and the best pick I recommended in the previous podcast of the predicted lineups has changed because Ben Abid might not even start, and we could see El Moti, who is only 4.1 million, be the starting goalkeeper against Man City. We've also got 2 out of position players in the attacking line, with Reihi and Mailula being forwards in this game, but they are playing technically as a midfielder or winger, so it's not ideal. I think the best pick is probably Mailula, who is in decent form at the moment, and he's also going to join the MLS in August. And Obeng at 5.2 million as a cheap striker could be decent, but I think Igor Jesus and Agoa would be the standouts at this price tag and below. And the best time to invest in Wydad Casablanca would be match day 3, and that's really the one where you can take some punts and go a little bit differential. But against Man City or Juventus, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really feeling it. There is one team though that I think I'm quite bullish on, and that's Real Madrid, who are the favourites to win the Club World Cup according to fantasyfootballpundit.com. And I haven't made any changes to this predicted lineup, so Courtois in goal, you've got Trent, Asensio, Howson and Garcia, and the injury situation hasn't changed too much, but we have had new signings here for Los Blancos in Trent Alexander-Arnold and Howson, and I think both of them will start. And Xabi Alonso predominantly used a 3-4-2-1 formation at Bayer Leverkusen, and some reports indicate he could change to a 4-4-2 to begin with, and Rodrigo is out of the picture, and that's why he could be sold this summer. But Courtois, Valverde, Alaba, Diaz, Mendy and Rudiger are all currently injured, yet they could return for matchday 1, while Camavinga will reportedly miss the group stages, and Endrick will actually miss the entire Club World Cup due to a hamstring injury. Carvajal and Eder Militao won't return until August, and the best picks from Real Madrid are Mbappe, Vinicius and Bellingham, but in that defensive line, I think Trent is still quite decent actually, and because of the low ownership, Fran Garcia might be worth a punt for the scouting bonus, and if you are back in Real Madrid to keep clean sheets, I think that could be a little bit of a cheat code in the group stages. I think their opponents in matchday 1 though are a decent team in Al Hilal, and they've got some decent Club World Cup fantasy assets, so Marcos Leandro could be available versus Real Madrid, but the likes of Joao Cancelo, Caio Cesar, Hamad Al-Yami, Malcolm and Mateb Al-Harbi are still doubtful and currently injured, and the best picks for me are Salem Al-Dawsari and Mitrovic, but we could see 1 or 2 changes to this lineup. Malcolm might not even start, but he is out of position, he's a 7 million forward and he's playing as a right winger. I would rather go for Mitrovic instead, and Al-Dawsari is even cheaper, he's a midfielder, and I think he's even worth investment in matchday 1, but more so against Red Bull Salzburg and Pachuca to round off the group stages. And speaking of which, I think Nene Dorgeles from Red Bull Salzburg is the standout, and he's also out of position at 6.3 million, but he has produced 8 goals over the past 10 matches, and he's also the main penalty taker for the Austrian outfit. But Schlager, Henry Blank, Galfries, Guindo, Musaio, Capaldo, Canate and Kjaergaard are doubtful, and after facing Pachuca in matchday 1, Red Bull Salzburg will face Al Hilal and Real Madrid in that order, and we could see Blažević start in goal. He was an infamous pick in UCL Fantasy. I would not recommend it whatsoever, and there is a chance Schlager is available after having surgery on his wrist, I believe. I covered this in the Predicted Lineups podcast only a few days ago, but whoever it is, I think they're both overpriced. I would not go for them, and the only player who's worth a punt, in my opinion, is Nene Dorgeles, who's playing as a right attacking midfielder in this 4-2-2-2 formation. So despite being out of position in a negative sense, I think his recent form is really impressive. And last but not least is Pachuca, who face Red Bull Salzburg in matchday 1, Real Madrid in matchday 2, and then Al Hilal to round things off in the group stages. And they have no injuries right now, and the best fantasy pick is Solomon Rondon, who has 7 goals over the past 10 games for both club and country. He scored the winners versus Peru and Bolivia, and he recently secured a hat-trick for Pachuca in the Mexican League, so he would be the one I'd pinpoint you towards. And Idrissi is out of position, he's a 6 million forward playing on the left, but I think Rondon definitely stands out in this Pachuca team. So that's all the 32 teams covered once more, with all the updates in terms of injuries, also highlighting out of position players, and also providing updates and correcting a few things that I talked about in the previous podcast. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and let's continue the conversation in the Matchday 1 deadline stream. That brings us to the end of this Club World Cup fantasy video, the updated lineups for Matchday 1, and this can also be used in future match days as well. It can be quite daunting when you're playing a new fantasy game and you don't recognize a lot of these teams, or you've watched them before, but I hope these videos have helped you to prepare very well for matchday 1, and you can feel more confident in your decisions with the captaincy, the way this game works with substitutions, and also the features, all the chips. Everything has been broken down in detail, player stats, clubs, you name it, injury updates, and all of that will be summarized in the deadline stream as well. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream for Club World Cup Fantasy, FPL, and the Champions League. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. Remember, if you don't know how to access this game, download the FIFA app or use my link in the description for that mini league. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 1 and the rest of this tournament, and I'll see you very soon for that deadline stream.